Xana, Maddie, and Ethan. They would come over to our apartment all the time. In a sense, it still doesn't feel real. This is someone that we've never seen before, didn't even know about.
Police department, search warrant! Come to the door!
Hello. Hi, I'm Officer Loing.
What would make them targets?
They were the type of woman he could never have.
Was his own family suspicious?
Our source says several members of the family actually went outside to look for evidence.
If this individual is the right one, he picked the wrong family. We're ready for this kid.
They should still be here, you know.
This man, Brian Koberger, a criminology grad student at nearby Washington State.
This is State of Idaho versus Brian Koberger.
Will tell you what police have learned about events inside the Koberger home in the days before the arrest, and why some members of the family may not have been so surprised when agents descended en masse just before New Year's Eve. We asked him about geotagging, that bit of tech that identifies precisely where and when photos and videos were made. It can be turned off, but among students at the University of Idaho, it rarely was.
With your geotag on and using social media, you can do one post, and then if you have several thousand followers, they can, to a large degree, all immediately know where you are, and if they want to meet up with you, then they can just...
Brian, what are you doing?
He kept to himself. He might have got picked on because he seemed like a weird kid with no friends.
Hey, it's me, the girl that went on a Tinder date with Brian. Touched me, not like inappropriately, just like trying to tickle me and like rub my shoulders and stuff. And I was like, why are you touching me, or what are you doing? And he would just like get super serious, and he's like, I'm not.
The young woman said she got out of the date by going to a bathroom and pretending to be sick.
He ended up messaging me on Tinder that he was gonna go, and then about an hour later he texted me and said I had good birthing hip.
This guy, I recognized him right away as new, and in the biology class I said, hey, do you want to be my... I took a photo of him looking in a microscope. I took a photo of him writing. I was like, dude, stop laughing. I'm trying to take your photo. This needs to look good for the project. And he immediately turned it off, and he just deadpan and just posed. He posed for the photo so seriously. It's his way or the highway. Don't mess this up, and we'll have no problem.
I would always catch him staring at us. I didn't take it in a creepy way at all. It was just kind of like one of those things that he did that we were like, okay, it's just Brian kind of being Brian.
One of her books is required reading. It's called Confession of a Serial Killer, The Untold Story of Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer.
Hello, Dennis.
In 2022, Ramsland appeared in a docuseries about her book, speaking on the phone to Rader.
So your fantasy life was more important to you than your real life, it sounds like.
Well, I guess in a degree it was.
BTK stands for Bind, Torture, Kill, the nickname Rader gave himself to toy with investigators during his decades-long string of murders from 1974 to his arrest in 2005.
You are Dennis L. Rader?
Yes, sir.
He is serving 10 consecutive life prison terms. And this is his daughter, Carrie Rawson.
Did you have any idea whatsoever that your dad was doing that stuff?
No, there's no way we would have known. I mean, if we had had any idea whatsoever, the very first thing you would have done would have been ran out of your house and gotten to the police.
Carrie is a victim's advocate now and a self-described survivor.
What did it do to your life, this discovery?
Everything. He was like my best friend.
It's unfathomable.
It still doesn't make sense this many years later.
In an effort to understand her own trauma and her own father, Carrie became something of a self-educated expert on the subject of murder, devouring books about serial killers, including, of course, that one written on her father's case by Dr. Ramsland, Brian Koberger's professor.
What did you think when you first heard that he had taken classes from her, from the person who wrote a book about your father?
It hails a month before, our source tells us. Police have found that Brian Koberger went online and visited Amazon.com to buy a couple of items. A knife A K-bar, advertised as the best fixed blade knife in the world for hunting, sporting, military, and a knife sheath.
It close to home. I saw the Ramsland name and I was like, seriously? I was literally committing murders and then going to school at night. So he was literally talking to the investigators that were investigating his own murders in the 70s.
It's not uncommon for men who commit serious offenses, particularly against women, particularly involving murder, to have experienced rejection by women that they sort of come to see as a collective mass that doesn't appreciate them, or that they have a kind of generalized disdain for women.
Brian Koberger.
Throughout the semester, he kept grading us down. Like, he just kept on applying PhD standards to our, 300 level work. He wanted us to read his mind and put down exactly what he would have said,
Yeah, then I found my underwear, shoved right there.
In the cup holder?
Yeah.
Those who commit serial crimes progress through a series of predictable events, phases, in the years before the murders occur.
They don't wake up in the morning and go out and commit a crime like this.
No.
This has occurred mentally over a long haul, over a long period of time. And so there have been most likely crimes committed in the past, nuisance types of crimes that you'd expect.
My dad talks a lot about, early on, by the time he was 7 or 8, window peeping and wanting to be in, collect women's lingerie, still that. We know, too, with my dad, he said he was breaking and entering into his old school, by the time he
Asked my roommate if she's open the door. I was like, hey, did you bring my suitcase up? And she's like, yeah, it was in the middle of the road. And I was like, that's weird.
Oh, your suitcase was in the middle of the road?
Ah.
In the back of my car.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, maybe I forgot and just left it out.
Right.
Then I take it inside and I open it. All the stuff I had up here, all my pay stubs and stuff I had in the center console, my sunglasses I was literally wearing yesterday were all shoved inside my suitcase, and it was zipped back up. And
so everything that you had in your front seat was now in your suitcase?
But
and then I found my underwear shoved right there.
In the cup holder?
Yeah, and I took it out, but it was in there.
Kind of been an uptick recently in we've had a couple vehicles stolen. We've had people's cars getting broken into.
I wouldn't be surprised that there's a piece of underwear that's missing. I'd be surprised if there was not. It's personal, it's intimate, and it allows him to also play mind games and create concern and fear.
Brian Koberger, who, our source says, volunteered to come over and take a look, and he soon recommended the installation of a video security system, and he, Koberger, volunteered to do the work. After the installation, our source says, police believe Koberger, if he was close enough to the woman's apartment, could pull up the cameras himself for a look, because Koberger knew the woman's Wi-Fi password.
Our source tells us that Brian Koberger is now considered a strong suspect in the break-in.
Lurker, looking through windows, peering, surveilling, peeping, to engage in those kinds of things that are going to strengthen his courage.
It came over like around noon, and we were all just like having fun, talking, socializing. Yeah, I always like replay like the conversations that I had with like Kaylee and Xana. She was talking to me and another friend about something stupid. And like she brought up my random like cooking videos and just talking about like how much she loved them and how she thought it was so funny. Yeah.
I certainly believe that's where he commits his first crime, is upstairs. So he knows where they are, and he starts there.
I believe strongly, and always have, that he had a particular victim, and that was either Kaylee Goncalves or Madison Mogen.
What would make them targets?
Well, they were beautiful, vivacious, the life of the party, and they were quite essentially the type of woman he could never have.
Police believe that after killing Kaylee and Maddie, the intruder went downstairs to the second floor, intending to leave the house, but encountered Xana, who was still awake. She had just ordered DoorDash and was still using TikTok. Roommate Dylan Mortensen, in her room on the second floor, told police she thought she heard crying from Xana's room. And then a male voice says something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's why he killed them. I think he would have felt cleansed. I think he would have felt devoid of that rage that had been building in him, and finally felt a sense of sort of being clean. Revenge, complete dominance of them not being able to say no, that he was going to take their life.
How did you find out what happened?
I had received a text and a call from one of my friends, and she asked me if like I knew anything was happening because there was cop cars everywhere. I texted Kaylee to ask if she was okay, but she never responded back. And then a couple of hours later was when I kind of found out everything that went down that day. We were all in shock. So I guess in my head, I was just like, there's no way this is real. We just saw them.
I went into complete shock, absolute complete shock. I couldn't cry, I couldn't think. Hope that something had got fumbled or something had got mixed up, but I turned the TV on and I saw the house and I was like, it's 1122 King Road. And I saw Kaylee and Maddie's car in the driveway.
I think after, a couple of days, I went home and I wasn't sure if I wanted to come back.
At a certain point, he started just giving everyone 100s, and he stopped leaving notes. It definitely was a before that day and after that day that you could see.
A threat out there still, possibly. We don't know. We don't believe it's going to be tainted.
No information that Papa Roger and these people intersected in any way, but it was just interesting to me to see that other people thought along that line as well.
Right.
This is just one reason, our source tells us, that investigators are now convinced that the man behind the Papa Roger profile was Bryan Kohberger.
Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
So significant. Who else is driving by at that rate of speed at that hour of the morning?
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today? Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Warning if you just got stopped, just make sure you give yourself money.
Our source tells us they got a list, a small enough list that they got a name. Genealogy, they might never have identified him. His name gave them the cell phone number, and it wasn't until they got the cell phone number that they could put the cell phone and the car in the neighborhood at the same time.
Now, the fast-moving investigation had even Bryan Kohberger's family feeling the heat. One of Bryan's two older sisters, home for the holidays, brought up an uncomfortable topic. The sister had noticed Bryan had been wearing latex gloves. She thought it odd. And at some point, the sister, quite loudly, pointed out that at the time of the murders in Moscow, Bryan had lived just a few miles away in Pullman, and that Bryan drove a white Elantra, a car that law enforcement across the nation was looking for. Add that to the gloves, and the sister said she thought the Kohberger family should consider that Bryan might have killed the 4 students in Moscow.
Then police had already observed Bryan cleaning the car with bleach.
As the day went by, everybody learned more.
What I can tell you is we have an individual in custody.
Absolutely insane. I just checked my phone because I'm like, I know I had this guy's number. I know I have his email. I have it all still in my...
The maximum penalty for this offense is death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes. How long does the prosecutor have before he decides whether or not it's a death penalty case?
He has to give the notice within 60 days of the arraignment or entry of a plea.
They found some curious items. For example, in search warrants, police reported that in Kohberger's home in Pennsylvania, in Bryan's bedroom, we're told, inside a latex glove, police found 2 ID cards, IDs belonging to 2 women.
This is a moment for us to acknowledge the contributions they've made and celebrate their academic achievement.
Sometimes like my photo memories will pop up on my phone. I'll wake up and I'll find like videos of like Kaylee and she's like dancing and singing. Xana just like smiling. Just like random photos of them.
What happens inside in your heart when you see that pop up unexpectedly?
I think like it hurts a little because like in my heart and like in my head, they should still be here, you know?